Hi there, welcome to Let's Talk Tottenham. At some point in time, I'll get to do one of these where we've won a game and be a bit positive, but unfortunately that's not today. Possibly the worst game to lose. Only two of us this week because I didn't have 4 or 5 people on, and we talked for about 3 hours about a game that I don't really want to talk about. But it's not a podcast on this week. It's I play football with Giles, 5-a-side football. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. I would ask you the same, but I think I know the answer. So we're going to have an hour of that. So
the other reason there's only two, it's a Spurs fan, me, and an Arsenal fan, Giles. But before we go on, I know you've got a blog going on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I podcast, but I podcast mostly about video games. So Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and a bit of streaming. I'm on a bit of a break over the summer, but if you follow me on Twitter at Giles Went West, you'll know when it's back. And Giles Went West on Xbox Live and PSN if you fancy a game of anything.
Excellent. All of those links will be in the description. If you're listening to the audio only, it'll be in the description there as well. Wayne's got in touch. Evening, Wayne. Always on these, watching everybody's Spurs channels. Big up, Wayne. Evening, fellas. See a relegation battle on the horizon. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that. But as I said, Giles is an Arsenal fan. So before we get on, I'll give you a minute. If you want to get it out of your system, here's your chance. You can have a minute.
Me? Okay. Well, I promise you, and I'm watching the back. So I promised I would be nice, but okay. Yeah, no. I mean, you can tell from the smile. Obviously, I've had a good weekend. I am not going to rub it in, and I think it's probably important to say, I've followed Arsenal for 35 years, maybe. And a lot of that has been good times. We've had some fairly rough times too, as well, in that period, the Bruce Rioch era, and now really. So I'm not one to rub it in, but I will definitely celebrate. And there was a bit of extra spice on yesterday's game. So thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks so much for coming on. Well, let's get down to it, the debrief as it is. The attitudes of both teams, I said on the preview on Friday and then went on Luca's stream. This is Luca's live. If you don't follow that on YouTube, give him a watch. If we don't show the same attitude as Arsenal, we're going to lose. And exactly what happened. Very similar to when you went to Brentford, first game of the season. Anyone with a footballing brain knows Brentford, first game in the Premier League, first time fans are at the stadium for however long, they're going to be up for it. You've got to match that. You didn't, you got beat. And in the same vein, first North London derby at Arsenal where fans have been allowed for near on 2 years, possibly even 2 years. You've had your 3 losses, first 3 games of the season, come off the back of 2 wins, 3 if you include the League Cup, no goals conceded. So anyone with a footballing brain could tell that you were going to be up for that. If we didn't match that, we're going to be in trouble. Straight from our kickoff, Davinson Sanchez not ready. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. And then the first 10 minutes, absolutely shocking. I ended up just watching Jamie Carragher's analysis before we came on, which I maybe shouldn't have done. But, I mean, we'll come on to the tactics a bit later. But the attitude was just absolutely awful. I mean, you must have been delighted with your attitude and the recent upturn in form. But what did you make of the game and your attitude at the start of the game?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it, Chris. I think it was amazing to see the difference, and I think it speaks to momentum. We, like you said, we had a dog of a start to the season. I think, to be honest, people overreacted, although no points from 3 games and bottom is obviously a no goals scored. It's not a great start, to be fair, but I think people overreacted. Brentford, I think, were pretty tough first day, although we didn't turn up. Man City and Chelsea, they're always going to be tough games. So it's been really good to see the change since then. And I think, just the momentum of both sides. Tottenham top at that international break, and I'm afraid kind of heading downwards, and Arsenal bottom and heading upwards. So, and it looked like that. First 10, 15 minutes, I thought we were brilliant. And then what was interesting to me, and I don't know what you think, is that there was I don't know if you remember, there was about a 5-minute period after that where actually Tottenham played pretty well, I thought. You may disagree. I can see that.
Well, to be honest, I can't remember that. If there was that, I must have been crying into the pillow or something when that happened. But I seem to remember we had a bit more of the ball, but I don't really remember us creating.
You had a couple of chances, and I've had the good luck, and I suppose it's more on me to watch bits again today, because obviously it was a better result for us. But it was really interesting to see that, because I think that's another thing about Arsenal. We started off really well, but we started games really well before against good opposition, and then in those 5-minute periods where things change, we just fall apart. And this time we didn't. And I think the whole of the first half in particular, Arsenal really, I mean, the energy coming out of Saka, Odegaard and Smith Rowe in the middle, the togetherness in defence and in defensive midfield, and Aubameyang looks like he really had the bit between his teeth. I love the Henry celebration for his goal. So yeah, overall, great attitude from us. And then Tottenham, I was really surprised. I mean, maybe I haven't watched as much of them this season as you guys have, obviously. But yeah, if you can't get up for a North London derby, there's some issues there, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. I can take losing to a better team. But to not turn up, I mean, we play 5-a-side. We're not anywhere near as fit as these guys by any stretch of the imagination. But we at least try. We at least try to turn up and play football. I mean, the second goal in particular, it was the one where Aubameyang flicked it round.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It was the first goal, Smith Rowe's goal. Højbjerg and Højbjerg's been given a lot of praise last season and this season, quite rightly so. Literally jogging. The second goal where Aubameyang flicked it round, where you almost got done by your goal kick.
Yeah,
he's looked for the foul there instead of going in. And I mean, it's not just him. It's unfair to me to just single him out. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're world class, best striker in the world, best left wing in the world. Those first 11, maybe except Lloris, I mean, if they didn't play in the next game at all, I wouldn't be upset if they're going to show that kind of attitude. I mean, unacceptable to show that kind of attitude in a professional football match. You don't like the manager, you don't like the team, you don't like this, whatever, fine. You at least try. I mean that second goal, I must admit, I swore for about a minute non-stop after the second goal and stopped watching. You stopped watching, you saved yourself about another 15 minutes worth of swearing there, I'd say. But yeah, I mean, there was one bit in the first half. We had it at the back, Lloris and the defenders playing it around. Your guys, your front 3 or 4 or whatever, just closing us down, harrying us down. You were playing it at the back. We were just stood there. It just tells you everything you need to know. And you earn your wins in the Premier or in football. And that starts with trying to win the game. Not trying to win the game, but that starts with having the right attitude and not taking the opponent lightly and wanting to win. But we've seen it 3 times now in 3 games. Palace for the whole game, Chelsea for the second half, Arsenal for the first half. We'll get on to the second half in a bit. But I mean, and Saka obviously had a bad summer, unacceptable what happened to him. But even if he's playing terribly and you're going to give him 1-on-1 with 15 yards either side, he's going to cause you problems.
Yeah.
But you must have been delighted with the fact that Neville said it in commentary, Spurs are there for the taking, and you basically won that game in the first, I don't know when the third goal went in, after half hour or 35 minutes. So you must have been delighted that you got the first goal, carried on, and then just saw the game off and done by half time.
Yeah, and it was a combination. I think I think we probably agree, but I disagree. Saka had a bad summer. I think he had a great summer, just missed a penalty, and that can.
I mean, in terms of the
right,
the effect it must have had on him. I mean,
exactly. In terms of confidence, I think his confidence up to that point must have been absolutely soaring. You know, he's playing for England, he's playing really well, he's contributing. But then, to come back from that, and I'm not a great stats guy, but I did pick up on this. That I think it was his first Premier League goal since like January or something. So again, you know, as a player who him and some of the other young players carried us last season to where we eventually didn't end up. So where we would have been without them is incredible. But I think it was great to see. I mean, you just think about it. He scored, Smith Rowe scored, Aubameyang got his goal. Everyone was playing really smoothly together. I think the interchange party looks like he's really coming into form. Just everything worked. And we finished our chances. That was the other thing. I think watching, you're right about energy and commitment, but we've seen a fair number of those games as Arsenal fans before where we've just not had the end result. And this time we finished. And again, trying not to rub it in too much, but I think part of that was Spurs giving us really clear-cut chances, and that was alarming. I think you're right to pick out your midfield as a whole, actually, and probably like you said, your whole team one way or another. But the midfield gave the defence no protection really, and some of those attacks, it took one pass to bypass them. I'm used to seeing that, but I'm used to seeing it from Arsenal. It was, personally, but obviously not for this podcast. It was quite nice to see another team doing it, to be honest.
Yeah. We'll come on to the taxes. I watched Carragher's piece about half hour ago. I didn't realise how bad it was. But what do you attribute your turnaround to? Do you think earlier in the season it was just a bad few games to have? I mean, Brentford you'd expect to win. You just didn't turn up with the right attitude. Man City, I know we beat them, but they'll either finish first or second, maybe third if Chelsea turn it around. But they're definitely in a title race. I can't remember who you had third.
We played Chelsea as well.
So you had two title contenders and a team fully on the up. So what do you attribute Arsenal's turnaround to? Just because it was a tough start and slow start? Or do you think something else has happened? Because against City, with Xhaka getting sent off, I thought the players aren't playing for him. It's only a matter of time, and then he's obviously turned it around.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think. I mean, when you look back, and there's I think probably not a stream or a podcast without a football supporter complaining that their team have had some bad luck. I think that Arsenal have only now just got. I think today was the first, or yesterday was the first time Arteta's had his full strength side to pick from, and now perhaps Xhaka's injured after yesterday. Some Arsenal fans maybe won't see that as necessarily a bad thing. It's harder to get sent off from the treatment table, but I think he played really well yesterday, and that's the thing with Xhaka. He's so variable, but. We had our full team, and I mentioned Partey earlier. Ben White's come in, and I think initially either was injured or had COVID. Gabriel was I think getting up to speed after the Olympics in defence. Partey wasn't available from memory from the first few games. So I think that, and obviously Tomiyasu's come in as a kind of late signing and looks brilliant. I mean, he looks like a really good player.
Superb, isn't he? The player that we were going to get for about 3 years, and then all of a sudden we decided not to. But
sorry about that.
Move on from that.
He looks like a good player. So I think it's fresh blood either coming back or coming in. And I think, like I said, it's momentum. You look at, we won 2 games 1-0 before this game. They could have gone very differently. Norwich and Burnley, again, the sort of teams that a team hoping to compete for the top end of the table, they should be beating. But again, the sorts of teams that we quite regularly lose against. So I think those were quite small margins. And then I think actually, honestly, yesterday was sort of the best game Arsenal could have had. North London derby, Spurs not in a great place, perfect timing. So I think it's all of that. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing, isn't it? 3 weeks ago, Spurs fans were going, keep Arteta in, we don't want him to lose his job. We're top of the league. You've lost all 3. It's amazing how quickly it can turn around. But I mean, I was so upset when I saw Xhaka started. Perfect opportunity, go storming in on him, foul him, tread on his toes, do something like that, and wind him up. But
don't give away our secrets, Chris. This is how we play.
But Man City, I mean, it was epitomised by Tanganga. First minute that he got, or first chance he got on Sterling, and then Grealish when he swapped over straight into him. You're in for a game here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's surely part and parcel of a London derby. Show them you're in for a game, and there was none of it. It was standing off. It was, I mean, none of you guys didn't really go storming in, but you didn't bloody have to. It was just, yeah. And then we come to the tactics, Nuno's tactics, and I didn't realise how bloody bad it was until I saw Carragher's piece, where you had Dele Alli up with Kane, Ndombele left wing, and Højbjerg left fullback. And this was after 5 seconds, and then after a minute, and then after 5 minutes he showed, and then the goal happened where it's the same. That's your three midfield that's supposed to be in the middle. And I mean, I can't believe that Arteta thought, well, they're going to line up like this. So it's obviously credit to your players that they've seen those gaps, although Stevie Wonder could have seen those gaps. But you've still got to make those count, and they did it time and time again. So you have to think that the players saw there was an opportunity there and said, right, we're going to do that time and time again, and that's where the goals came from. But I mean, I said again against Palace with Nuno, I haven't got a problem with him picking the wrong lineup or the wrong tactics, because there's hundreds of managers that have done that before, hundreds of managers will since. But for God's sake, change it when it's not working, surely. And I mean, for what Carragher showed, within the first 5 minutes, there were three of them where if you'd have done a better header or a better pass, you were completely clean through. But I mean, I didn't notice it watching the game. I only noticed it when I was watching Carragher earlier. But I mean, could you believe how open we were in a derby, especially where we've conceded 3 goals in the last 2 games? Even more than that, 10 if you include European and Carabao Cup. So you'd think, wouldn't you, keep it tight. But could you believe how open it was for you and how many chances you had, certainly in that first 10 minutes?
No, not at all. And I think that's, again, it's a really good observation. I think that
it's Carragher's observation. I can't take credit for that, I'm afraid,
well,
as much as I'd like to.
It was yours, to be fair, but you could have claimed it. I wouldn't have. Yeah, it was shocking, and I think for me, a lot of the times we maybe go a little bit overboard with our reactions in terms of being passionate about the clubs we support, but that was really, really, really poor, and we benefited from it. I think when you were talking about the turnaround, I mentioned that for us it was the energy, it was the ruthlessness, but it was also having those opportunities. And I cast my mind back to games where we've played against people like Man City or Chelsea, and again, quite often we've had that initial period of energy followed by just letting these huge gaps go past. And it was I'm sorry, this is probably the worst thing for the chat. I shouldn't have given out my Twitter. I'm going to get all kinds of stuff, but it was a bit like watching Arsenal, I'm afraid. There was sometimes it was almost like they were ushering the Arsenal players through the midfield and just saying, go on, have a run. It was a bit baffling. And it's interesting when you pick up on the tactics, because I wasn't really watching it. Obviously, for today, I was trying to sort of pay a bit more attention to what Tottenham were doing and the tactical side of things. But it did strike me as a confidence thing or an attitude thing. I don't know how much of that is about the coaching, because I'd imagine. But then if I was the coach, you'd like to think, however calm you are as a person, you would be trying to get that point across. It might be shouting and screaming, it might be calmly, but it didn't look, whenever the camera cut to Nuno, he didn't to me look like he was desperate for things to change. And again, contrast with Arteta, who I think it helps that he's very energetic on the sidelines, but I'm sure some of the guys watching this or listening in will notice the contrast between the two managers, and that's always frustrating when you've lost.
Yeah, we'll talk about the managers in a bit, but I think Nuno just doesn't have an idea of what to do sometimes. But yeah, I mean, the third goal obviously came about for Kane. I'm going to defend Kane a little bit here. He obviously had a bad game. Ben White bullied him. I've always said I don't think Kane's the best at holding the ball up or in the air, back to goal. But there's people saying that Kane just doesn't look interested and everything like that, which you can argue is the case. But I think if he wasn't interested, he obviously slipped over the ball. But he tackled Saka in our box.
Yeah.
And then obviously the ricochet because no one else reacted apart from Saka. But if Kane wasn't interested, I don't think he makes that 70-yard run. And it wasn't him jogging and Saka got held up for about 5 minutes. So I don't think it helps Kane. We haven't got a playmaker and he's trying to play that role as well and no one's running beyond him.
Yeah.
And we don't look like we're going to create anything. So I think he's getting frustrated and trying to do too much. But obviously, slipping over the ball, that happens. But if he's not interested, he doesn't make that 70-yard run for me and try and stop it. But what did you make of his performance? What have you made of him this year? Obviously, no love lost for Kane because of Spurs, but he is an England captain as well, so that it does have a bit of a, not an effect, but you have some interest in him. But what have you made of him this season? What did you make of him, yesterday?
Yeah, it was. I agree with what you were saying. First of all, he chased back all the way, and he was pretty unlucky with the. I think he hit it 3 times in that sliding tackle to line it up for Saka.
It's more that Saka was the only one who reacted, and there were 2 defenders next to him. And they just
And again, I wonder if that's confidence because Saka really looked so sharp there. He was very, very quick with his feet. He was also very quick-minded, I think, in that moment. So, but yeah, Kane was unlucky there. I thought overall, I agree something looks a bit off this season. I doubt that. It's easy, I think, to associate that with, the transfer saga or the drama potentially with Man City pre-season. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but these players are human. He's bound to it's bound to creep into your mind, I think, at some point. If things are going badly, you start to not only doubt yourself and the people around you. I'm sure there's lots of support they get to avoid doing that. But I'm sure there must be part of him sort of thinking, maybe I shouldn't be here. Or maybe I didn't intend to be here, rather. So maybe that is part of it. I thought the interesting thing for me the thing that I really picked up on was he missed a pretty good header chance, and then he missed a good chance in the second half where I really thought he should have scored. And
was that the one your keeper saved?
No, he put it past the same post his header went past. I can't remember quite the build up.
I can't remember that one. I remember the header. That was poor.
Yeah, he had 2, and again, I think honestly, and I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts in the chat and everyone else. But to me, I mean, Kane and Son have been such a lethal duo really over the last few seasons, and Kane's stayed fit so much. Even when he got injured, he came back pretty quickly, and it's almost, to me, it almost feels like these are the dips that you go through, and Tottenham have been, and Spurs supporters have been fortunate enough, I think, to get a really consistent run out of Harry Kane. And I think this probably just shows that he's so important to that team, and he's going through a dip, and the team are going through a dip.
Yeah, I think losing Eriksen, not replacing him, is a big issue. I mean, the problems are more than just on the pitch and on the dugout. I mean, the problems run all the way to the top, but we don't need to get into that. We're talking about the game, but I mean, it's obvious what the problem is at Tottenham, and that's a certain chairman and a certain company, being that they showed more interest in the Anthony Joshua fight than helping the manager out and buying the players that the manager wants and getting the manager that they wanted. But yeah, I mean, the second half we obviously played better. I mean, we had to. I mean, he could have been fired on the spot there if we hadn't have improved in the second half. I thought Skip played quite well. I thought Hill, while he didn't play that great, he showed at least a bit of desire for our goal. It was him who wanted it more than whoever your right back was to get it through to, must have been Reguilon. And unbelievably as it sounds after that first half, we could quite easily have got a draw out of that, because I thought Kane should have had a penalty. It's certainly a foul. The question mark for me was it on the line? Was it in the box? Was it outside? And then obviously Ramsdale's brilliant save at the end.
Yep.
But, I mean, was there any part of you worried in the second half? Did you think it was a penalty? Even if the more of a chance goes in, there were about 3-4 minutes left in that game and you would have just sat completely back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
But,
of course, I was worried. I've watched Arsenal many years. We've thrown away more solid chances than that. More reliable wins than that. So yeah, no. If there's ever a chance to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory, we can usually snatch it. Was I worried? Yeah, I was worried. I also, my first reaction was I thought it was a penalty. Watching it again, I think there's at least some kind of debate that could be had, but I wouldn't have been surprised to see it given, which is one of those expressions that I've tried to avoid saying, but there we go. I didn't say I've seen them given, so at least there's something there. Yeah, I was worried, and I think again, I mean, you glossed over it in the first half. I think the Xhaka nudge in the build up to one of our goals, I've also seen kind of given as a foul, and I think
he's got to be stronger though. There, Højbjerg. It's a nudge, yeah, fine, but he's got to be stronger there.
But not to lay a trap. I mean, to me, there's some similarity there. Strikers we don't expect to be strong and stay up. And Højbjerg we're criticising. So yeah, I don't think it was clean cut. I was worried, and yeah, that chance at the end, that Mora shot was a great shot, and credit to Ramsdale because he hadn't had a huge amount to do, and I think he's one of the players again who's really sort of shown their mettle in the last few games. So yeah, if that had gone in and we had 4 minutes of injury time with Spurs bombing forward, that could have been pretty tense.
I mean, if we haven't got anything, it would have been absolute robbery. We didn't deserve it, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a penalty or at least a foul. The only question mark for me was it in the area or was it not? But I think I only saw it on the game and the replays during the game. I couldn't bring myself to watch matches of the day. I don't know if they talked about it or not, but he definitely got kicked, I think. And penalty or not, foul or not, it's still a bit of a silly thing for a defender to do because now with VAR, you're giving referees or officials or whoever a decision to make, but it obviously wasn't given. We didn't deserve anything anyway, certainly after that first half. But I mean, when have you've seen thousands of times, haven't you, teams who don't deserve anything from a game suddenly get something from a game? I mean, Watford and Wolves, we didn't really deserve that much. We didn't play that well, and yet we get 3 points out of them. But
yeah, no, I think, I don't know, I've heard some stuff this season about some changes to VAR, and it does feel with that sort of decision, I kind of feel like that was a decision that would have given a penalty last season. And I think that they've decided, I don't know if this is entirely accurate, so I'm sure someone will correct me in the chat or afterwards, but it feels anyway like they've sort of raised the threshold a little bit in terms of VAR anyway, to sort of say that things look worse in slow-mo. And yeah, I think you could definitely argue it could be a penalty, and without gloating too much, I'll just leave it there.
I think, I can't remember when it happened. It must have been around about the hour mark.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'd bet money, wouldn't you, if it had been given, Kane scores that 3-1 then with half an hour left. I definitely think the second half performance of us had in part to do with the fact that you were 3-0 up. There's no point and no value in you bombing forward, getting kicked off, pinged on the counter-attack a couple of times, and then all of a sudden the game's up in the air again. So it was more of a counter-attacking game for you. So I think while we did play better, I think it was helped by you sitting back a little bit more. But I mean, if we started like that, it doesn't matter if you were sitting back or not. We showed a bit of desire in that half. If we started like that, we've actually got a game on our hands rather than a 3-0 deficit to claw back in the second half. I mean, that's pretty much what Born to Lose. Hi, buddy. Always watches, always comments. What on earth did Spurs fan? What on earth did we do as loyal fans to deserve that insipid and spineless first half display against our biggest rivals? If we can't get up for that game, we've got serious problems. Exactly my issue yesterday. But yeah, so I cut you off there. Yeah, second half. I can't even remember what I was saying now. I was just... I'll keep doing that. I'll keep losing my train.
No, but it was. I mean, I think you're right. I think you were. The reason you forgot, I think, was because it was slightly encouraging signs, and you were talking about how if you'd started that way, maybe things would have gone differently, or at least I'd imagine you and everyone else watching would at least feel like you'd sort of given it a good. I mean, it's small consolation, obviously, whenever our team loses, but you would have felt like they were at least giving it a good fight. I do think, had that goal gone in, had that penalty been given, had they scored, it would have been a different game. But I sort of also think one of that playing, if they were chasing the game, that sort of plays into this current Arsenal's team's strengths as well. And one of the things I did notice, and again, I don't know if you thought this, but certainly occurred to me, was even after that first goal, that Son goal, it didn't feel like a barrage then, and you still had a decent 10 minutes plus injury time. I think that it wasn't a constant threat on our goal even then, and so again, it comes back to your point about attitude or confidence, that you would have thought, yes, had you got a penalty and scored it, there would be momentum, but you would have thought that after the Son goal, and until the Moura chance, I'm probably missing stuff, but I can't remember it being I wasn't. My nails are good, I wasn't chewing my way through them for the last 10 minutes. I would have been had that Moura goal gone in right at the end.
Yeah, I think the goal went in 73 or something like that, didn't it? So I was watching that going, if we get a goal in the next 5, next 10, game on. But yeah, I'm like you. I can't really remember anything that I'd consider a real good chance before the Moura. Kane had that one, didn't he, where he was 1-on-1 and put it just past the post. But I'm sure that they said it was offside. But even so, he should be scoring that. But I think that was before Son's goal. But yeah. I mean, I was hoping Son goal goes in, you guys sit back, we can then attack you at will almost and create chance after chance. And whether you didn't sit back or whether we just don't have the confidence to go full out like that, it just didn't really happen. And more of his chance really was from outside the box. So it hit the bar because of a brilliant save. It's not what you call a clear-cut chance. The Kane header, the one past the post, I can't remember. The one where he put it just past the post, they are clear-cut chances, and he should be scoring them really. But like I said, it would have been robbery if we got any of them. If we'd have got anything out of that game, robbery, because of that first half performance. And it could have easily been 5-0 to you at halftime.
Yeah.
And while it would have been awful, I don't think any Spurs fan could really begrudge it, because we just didn't turn up at all and didn't show the effort. And what I hate about the second half as well is that he brought Skip on, so it's Højbjerg and Skip marshalling that defence. I can't remember you having too many clear-cut chances in the second half. Again, that might be because you didn't really try for them, but we look so much more solid. So you don't have to wait 45 minutes and 3-0 down to do that. You can do that after 20 minutes if it's not working. It's not a problem. You just speak to the player who's come off and just say, it's not you, it's my fault. You're playing next week. And yeah, that's why I don't understand. It quite obviously wasn't working. But I mean, yeah, I haven't had a rant like this on a show for a little while.
I'm just letting you go, Chris. You get it all out, mate. It's helpful.
Well, while we're talking about the managers, Nuno and Arteta, we're in a similar kind of situation that I don't know about you, but I was speaking to Luca and Stephen Featley yesterday. He invited me on his show after the game, and thankfully, Arsenal fan, he's very nice about it. He wasn't laughing. He's ill at the moment, so get well soon, Stephen. But yeah, those guys were both saying they didn't want Arteta. Luca was very much get out. And Nuno wasn't obviously our first choice. He was about 7th. And now with all of these results, there'll be people saying get out. So we're in a similar kind of boat there. But we'll start with Arteta because you're the Arsenal fan. What do you make of Arteta? Did you want him in? Do you think he's the right man for you? He talks about the process and the project. Or do you think there's issues there and he's given himself more time after yesterday?
The process indeed. Yeah, I had my doubts when we went for him. I think that football teams in general, I can't think of another industry where the equivalent of being a good player suddenly makes you a good manager. And I think at least Arteta obviously had his experience coaching under Pep. So, but some of the ex-players who get pretty high profile gigs as managers, I find it staggering. But anyway, that's more of a general point. Arteta, I think when he came in, I was impressed with him initially. I think I'd contrast him to Freddie Ljungberg, because when he came in as a caretaker manager, I really that felt like a kind of nostalgia appointment. Whereas Arteta, as I said, because he'd had the experience under Pep, and then the way that he spoke in terms of he was very critical where it needed to be, and I thought he was honest. Whereas in stark contrast, particularly to Freddie, he had been there just for a few games before, it was noticeable how he didn't seem to see anything wrong. Arteta really called out the things that he didn't like. So I appreciated that. I think he had a bad season last season. It's, the results, the position proves that. I think there's some mitigating circumstances last season. And compared to the guys you mentioned from yesterday, I think I'm probably was always slightly more in favour of giving him time, although it was obviously very testing, the start of the season, and these 3 games, had they not gone in the same way, the same as they have, and we're sort of on a bit of a run, he would be under so much pressure. And I think just coming to Tottenham, because obviously that's what we're here to talk about today, I think I'm trying, Chris. I'm trying.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Then, I wonder, you talked earlier about Nuno not making changes early. I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was before we came on there, but, to me, he didn't look, he looked nervous. He looked a little bit short of ideas to me yesterday. And I wonder how much of that, just looking from the outside, everyone knows that he's not even first 3 choices for this role. That puts a certain pressure on you. I think Arteta had a different type of pressure, but Nuno, how many managers did Tottenham go in for before they got him? And I think that will make it very difficult for him over the next few games. I don't know what you think. What do you reckon?
I don't know. We've got a question from Born to Lose here. We all know who the real culprit is for the current state of Tottenham. Obviously, we know that. If we lose badly without any fight against Villa, that's our next game before the international break. Would you want Nuno sacked? I don't want a manager sacked, and he has to have time. It's not his fault. He's inherited the squad that don't have a playmaker and everything like that. And I mean, he could have got one in the transfer window. But yeah, I mean, he's not helping himself. I mean, lowest goals to expected goals ratio, conceding goals hand over fist, playing all of our midfield over on the left and leaving a massive gap against our big rivals. The players not showing any fight, which is that the players' fault or is that the manager that can't G them up? But yeah, I mean, I don't want him fired, but if we keep losing like this, it's only going to go one way, isn't it? You can't carry on like that. I mean, and Born to Lose has said to clarify, that's if you were in our position. So I'll ping the question back up again. If we lose badly, we're at home to Villa as well. If we get battered by Villa without any fight, would you want him sacked? If you were a Spurs fan. So if it was Arsenal in our position, you had Villa next, got battered, would you want the manager sacked?
Yeah, no, I wasn't just gonna say yes, the whole team, get rid of them all, Born to Lose. No,
it wouldn't be the worst thing currently.
I'm sort of with you. I don't like seeing managers go, especially this quickly. I mean, there was a time when Nuno was being talked about as our next manager, as Arsenal's next manager, and what he did at Wolves early on was pretty impressive, and he was playing really good football. So they were playing really good football. So I think that to me it comes down to would you, if things are like this, the results, the performances, if things go in that direction, would you want everything to stay the same? That's how I would kind of flip the question around. And what fan, or even, you know, what owner would want everything to stay the same? So then what do you change, I think, is the question. And, you know, you'd like to think a manager would change something meaningful themselves. They're in control of which players they put on the pitch, the tactics. They can't control how players execute those, and that's down to the players, and there's a responsibility there. But they do have a few like levers to pull, if you will. So I suppose what I would say is I'd obviously want something to change. I mean, you can't lose three. I was going to say 3-0, but you got one, didn't you, yesterday? So that's progress. Sorry, I'm allowed a couple in this episode. Yeah. I'm going to keep them brief. But, you know, you can't lose a considerable number of goals each game. You can't perform like you did, especially for the first half, over and over again and expect, everyone to be happy. So I wouldn't switch the manager, but the manager has to do something different to earn that. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't resent fans who are, you know, questioning if he's the right guy if he doesn't make changes himself.
Yeah, I mean, Daryl Denton's put the lyrics to A Ride to Nowhere. I'm not sure of the song, but I've looked up. They are lyrics based on I assumed it was a song, but I mean, it speaks volumes. But Nuno, I think's on borrowed time anyway. Regardless if he won us a league, he wouldn't have been. But he had a 2-year contract given. Pochettino's got 2 years left, or did have 2 years left when Nuno was appointed. I think that's possibly why they've kept Mbappe. They're desperate to win that Champions League, and then he can go off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And then it works for Levy, obviously. He's got rid of Nuno for free because his contract has expired. He gets Poch in for free because he's not in a contract. But I would worry if that. I've got no stats or evidence to back that up. It's just what I think. But I'd be very worried if I was Poch if that was the case under Levy, because he's not going to change, and until that changes, then that's an issue. But with Arteta, do you think there's a possible reason that the fans don't like him? Because you're in a similar position, I think, to Man United. You've both had wildly successful managers over 2 decades. A lot of your fans, certainly younger fans, for United will only know the Ferguson years where they were winning. A lot of your younger fans will only know Wenger years when you were winning, and from when you were winning, you know, the Invincibles and Henry and Vieiras and all of this business. And you've obviously got Emery, didn't work. Following Wenger's just like Moyes following a Ferguson is, you know. And then you're on your second manager since I'd probably say your most successful manager ever.
Yeah.
And so he it's only really now Solskjaer, after I don't know how many years Ferguson retired, 6 maybe, that the comparisons with Ferguson have kind of gone away, where Shaw's still fairly new in that process. So there's a possibility that Arteta's always going to be judged against Wenger. So do you think that could be happening, or do you think he's his own kind of person and Arsenal fans are understanding it's a transitional period, or do you think it's we want success now because we've had it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very conscious I don't represent Arsenal fans. You know, I just need to come on Twitter to know that we don't always agree. You won't see me on AFTV or whatever it is. But you know, I think that there is a bit of that, but also it's comparing. You know, it's not comparing to Wenger in the last few years, where lots of those same fans were desperate for him to go and being. I think they, in some ways had a good point, but also were pretty out of order. So it's kind of casting your mind back to the glory years and, you know, a period of time where there was less competition. My personal take on it, and maybe this is a bit, I should get more ranty for clicks and stuff. But my personal attitude to these sorts of things is that the standard, I think, of the Premier League has just gone up so significantly. I mean, I watch City, United and Chelsea, and certainly I've got no love lost for at least 2 of those sides. And it's phenomenal, the football that they're playing now and again. And when Arsenal were competing, competing for the actual top spot, it was really 2, maybe 3 teams fighting it out. And now you look at the top, realistically top sort of 6 or 7, certainly those top 4. And I'm sorry, I don't think you or I are in that.
Oh, we're nowhere near. I predicted we could get top 4, but now there's no the top half is potentially a dream for us if we carry on the way that we're carrying on.
Yeah, so I think that's the other thing, just to come back to your question, I think that's the other thing Arteta's up against, and any manager, I think, for a side that aren't spending huge amounts and don't have those resources. Although obviously Arsenal spent a lot of money over I'm getting ahead of you, chat. I know you're going to say it. But we spent a lot of money over the summer, but we are shopping in a different market. I think it's really tough. So I think it's really interesting. I don't know. There's a journalist he used to cover Reading, actually, Giles Watson. I watch a lot of his videos, and it was really interesting him pointing out that the support in the stadium for Arsenal, even in our fairly bad performances, is pretty good compared to the reaction on Twitter and kind of out there in the comment sections in general. And I think there is, at least among a smaller group of fans, a sort of sense of realism that there is this belief in the project a little bit, in the sense that it's going to take time. And so I think Arteta he's never going to convince people who want us to win the league this season. Those people, I mean, I want some of whatever they're smoking, but in general, I think more realistic fans, then I think he's again, it comes down to performances and it comes down to results. But, we're seeing that progress. And that was the thing, even in the later Arsenal years. And the thing I think you guys are dealing with now, which is if you don't progress, even if that's static, and certainly if you're going backwards, but if you don't progress, then obviously fans get pretty restless. So I think that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fairly similar to us, I think, in a sense. Quickly, Bob Spur. Aubameyang is ugly. Sorry, that's the best banter I can give after yesterday's debacle. Unfortunately, ugly players can score goals as well. But how are you doing, Bob? I've been on the show a lot of times. Really big supporter. Love Bob.
I need to turn my camera off, Bob. I didn't realise we were. I didn't realise that was the standard of judgment. But,
I'm on here, so you're fine.
He's got a lovely set of gnashes, hasn't
he? But we're in a fairly similar situation. You've obviously had your most successful manager. It's all relative, obviously. Our most successful manager was getting through to a few finals and regular Champions Leagues. But I think it then raises expectation, and when you don't meet those expectations, that's when it's kind of unacceptable. But 16-17 season, when we finished second, you could argue that domestically that was our height, and that was where Levy didn't make any signings. And I mean, under Wenger, early years, he didn't make a huge amount of signings in terms of, oh my God, they've got that player. But he had a plan, didn't he? It was young players, coach them up, sell them for massive profit when they were world stars. But it obviously worked. And yeah, we're in a similar kind of situation where your expectations have got really high because you were winning leagues and stuff, and then your performances have dropped below that level, and then we're the same. But I mean, the football that we're playing, we're used as well not to having the success under Pochettino that we did, relative success, but it was entertaining football. Whereas now it's absolute dross, and coming after the Jose Mourinho era as well.
Sorry, Chris. I think there were a couple of things I was kind of thinking about before today, and whether I would say them. But come on, you guys have had a rough weekend, so this one's for you. I think the football you've been playing the last few seasons, it's been previous seasons were around the era you were just talking around. It was so good to watch, and watching this is going to get me ostracised, but watching a Spurs match, especially because I was less stressed and ranty about it, it was a pleasure. And watching them play yesterday and in highlights that I've seen the rest of this season, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, Levy wrote us fans a letter in a programme, or he wrote to the fans saying we're getting back to the Spurs DNA, and then we're playing like this. So it's just lies after lies. But we don't need to get into the whole Levy thing. That'll just upset me. But in terms of the season, obviously, it's very difficult to say. We're 6 games in, I think. But it's difficult to say, is it taking shape or not? But I mean, for Arsenal and Spurs, what do you see the season ahead for both? Because obviously you're on the up. There's very, very small chance of certainly you, possibly us, getting into that top 4 or even Europe for us. If we carry on, we'll be in a relegation battle if we're shipping goals like this. But like you said, he's got to make a change, not just a little tweak here or there. He's got to make a big change, Nuno, certainly if he wants to keep his job, because if this carries on, he's off.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Obviously, you're on the up. So what do you see for Arsenal's season going forward? You've got rid of 2 of the big hitters. And you could argue that even though we were terrible, Spurs is a big hitter as well, because it's not like a normal game of derby. It generally, form kind of goes out the window there, regardless of how you're playing. So it is a big game for both of us. So we've essentially both got 3 big hitters out of the way. Yeah, what do you see for the season ahead for Arsenal first and then Spurs?
Yeah, so I think for Arsenal, it comes down to whether we can keep the team fit. I think if you look at I was looking at our squad ahead of this. Hey, I was doing some research, Chris, and just thinking, I think we've got, to me, our starting 11 now is actually a really, really good starting 11. I'm quite happy with them, and we've got some strength in depth in some areas, but not others. So if we can keep everyone fit. And then January is an issue around the African Cup of Nations.
Aubameyang's off, isn't he? Isn't he African?
I'm not sure if are they qualified, but he would be involved if they're qualified, and then Partey. And I think Thomas Partey is the really big one, because if he's playing well, I think that he's, compared to last season, he's had a season to bed in. I think he's really important. So if everyone's fit and people don't get sent off, I'm looking at you, Granite, then I think we have a really good chance of hitting Europe. But realistically, I think it's Europa League has got to be the target. And just keeping that squad healthy and playing together, that's the key. For you guys, it's so hard to say. I mean, so much of this is recency bias. I don't know how you felt after 3 games, but remember you were top of the league. I think that was flattering as much as us being bottom was misrepresentative as well. So I think at the moment in the league, any team is one good run away from sort of turning their season around. I think this season it does to me look like this is going to be a tough season for Tottenham, especially if Kane, if his sort of dodgy patch continues. I think that's a real problem. And you mentioned the lack of creative midfielder. I think that's a really big issue. Dele Alli, I can't remember if it was when it was, maybe it was even in the pre-season against us. I thought I remembered him having a really good and that certainly wasn't the case yesterday. So I think for Spurs, I think, again, I think we're kind of fishing in the same pool in general at the moment. And I think more than probably ever, the competition, I know the fans love the competition between the 2 clubs anyway, but it feels to me like we are sort of in a similar place. We just happen to be on a better run at the moment. So I think we're looking slightly more positive at the moment in terms of Europe, but I think we should both be aiming for Europa League at best. And for us, that comes back to that, that project or process that we keep talking about. And for you guys, I don't know. Again, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I've got a question from Bob Spur here. Are you questioning why Arsenal haven't played like yesterday previously? And are you confident this will be some form of turning point, obviously, for Arsenal there?
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out as well, he said that Levy has come through with his promise of open attacking in expansive football. Unfortunately, failed to tell us it would be played by the opposition. But yeah, in terms of do you think this could be a turning point? I think yesterday was a huge game for both managers. Both Arteta not so much under pressure now, but was earlier. Nuno wasn't under pressure.
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I'm not sure it's a turning point as such. I think it builds on, I think the last 3 games build, what yesterday showed is that we can score more than 1 goal in a game. So that's nice because, it was sort of no goals for 3 games and then 1 in the next 2 in the league anyway. So that was important. I think beating a kind of bigger team, and again, I say that with all kind of due respect to Spurs, beating a bigger team, a bigger occasion as well. I think people have pointed out that Odegaard is a sort of player who actually steps up on those occasions, which is interesting. Whereas I think we have, even our big players have tended to step back a bit in those games. So that's progress. I think I wouldn't describe it as a turning point. I would describe it as a step forward. And I think that yesterday really built on it. But the problem with Arsenal, and again, this is a Tottenham podcast, so we won't go on about it, but the problem with Arsenal, to answer your question, Bob, was that we're always just 1 game away from destroying our run. So it is quite possible that after today we could turn in an absolute dog of a performance against a sort of less challenging team on paper, and we could be back to square one. So I hope it is a step forward. It feels like it. It was a good performance. Unfortunately, you guys sort of contributed towards that a bit with you not being quite up to your usual standards.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Our usual standards in recent weeks haven't been any better. But first 3 games of the season, we obviously, I thought we played. I went to the City game. I thought we played really well. They're obviously going to have a lot of the ball, but we had a real attacking threat. I haven't got a problem being defensive if you've got an attacking threat as well. But when you're defensive with no attacking threat, like we were against Palace, it's just you can't play football like that and hope that they don't score with their 12 chances and you get 1 and score. You can't play like that. But after last season with our absolutely shoddy defence, I was quite pleased. 3 clean sheets and the Skip and Højbjerg were marshalling that defence quite well. So we didn't look like conceding a huge amount. I know Wolves had a lot of chances, but they're going to get chances with try-always pace, but they didn't really create anything hugely clear-cut, I don't think. I mean, it was a long time ago, so I could be confused there. And Watford with Sarr, he got the ball quite a lot, but he was always encouraged to go infield where there was too much traffic. Right. But yeah, I mean, I was slightly worried we weren't creating any chances really. And eventually you're going to concede goals, and if you're not going to score goals, you're not going to win games. But I certainly didn't expect a 9-goal haul in 3 games. And, the best defence in the league, now one of the worst, manager of the month, now one of the worst. But, I mean, what I don't understand is how you can't, like Born to Lose said, if you can't get up for North London derby, you should be playing in one.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we started, wasn't it? And I agree entirely.
And it's not just a London derby; it's the London derby. If you can't get up for the London derby, I mean, Chelsea is bad enough, but at least we started well in that match.
Yeah,
it was just as soon as Chelsea turned it on, we couldn't cope, and then we just completely capitulated. But if Nuno doesn't change stuff around, like you said, he's out the door. Yeah. If we get battered by a Villa and then Man United after the international break, both at home, which if we defend like that, Ronaldo's having a field day and Fernandes is having a field day and whoever else plays with them on the wing. But does he go back to the boring football and then try and keep a clean sheet and try and nick one? He's going to have to do something, but there's a balancing act, isn't there? Without that playmaker, we don't have the transitional play. We can break it up in the defence, don't have anyone to get it to the forwards, or we break it, or we get it back to goal up front, don't have anyone to ping it out wide. But yeah, so you're looking a much more balanced team at the moment.
Yeah, where do you think we'll both end up?
I reckon you'll be Europa. Maybe I don't think you've got enough for
No.
Champions League at all. I reckon Europa, but again, like the African Cup of Nations, if Aubameyang does go and Partey and they're your best players, and then they're out for the best part of 2 months, that could have a negative effect. I still don't think your defence is that great. The amount of room Son had for his goal was slightly worrying. Against better teams, as you've seen against Man City, carve you open at will. So yeah, maybe for us, if we have a good seat, turn it round, we can get like Europa League. But at this moment in time, we must be the worst formed team in the league. Maybe other than Norwich.
Yeah, I guess. Based on 3 games. Yeah, I suppose.
But you'd like to think with the players that we both have, certainly going forward, there's enough there to not have to worry about finishing bottom half. But it's all confidence, isn't it? I mean, exactly the same as you. We had 3 wins, got battered by Palace, completely shot us to pieces, and now we're on free fall. And you had that loss against Brentford, and then had 2 bad losses, obviously against 2 of the top teams. But as you'll know from winning the league, when you're on a bad run, it doesn't matter how, and it was exactly the same against Norwich. It doesn't matter how, just get over the line, get a win, and then build from there, which is what we've got to do. But the longer it goes on, with more of uncertainty, we're looking for a new manager. The players won't trust the manager, and then we're in free fall again. But yeah, at this moment in time, you're looking the better team, just 3 wins out of 3. But like you say, it could just come crashing down with a bit of a heavy loss in your next game. So I think we're looking at mid-table, really, like 8th, 9th. Even though I predicted we could get top 4 at the start of the season.
We'll come back to it after Christmas and see how we're doing. But so much depends. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? We're what, 6 games in, and immediately, already the league is forming. I don't know. I wonder what happens in tonight's game, but Brighton are a bit of a surprise package at the moment.
I'll have a quick look on BBC Sport.
But them aside, while you're doing that, the top.
They're 1-0 down at half time at Palace. Zaha with a penalty.
There we go. So the top 4, are the people you'd expect at the moment, and that league, it feels like it's kind of shaping up. And where are we? We're right next to each other. And if I was having one of my few little gloats, then I think we're just above you, Chris. But generally, we are essentially in the same place, and that kind of sums it up, really.
I think we'll both be fairly inconsistent here this season, and we'll have a few good wins, we'll have a few bad losses, we'll have a few draws where we, get a draw from the mouth of a loss, and I've completely messed that saying it, but I think we'll be fairly inconsistent, both of us, this season, and it's. But like I say, I think it's only a matter of time until Pochettino comes back. I think after his tenure at PSG in a year and a half, but if he doesn't win that Champions League, he'll probably be fired, and then Nuno's only got a year left, or whoever's in charge, go and get Poch on a free. But I'd be worried if Pochettino came back with Levy with this squad, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Pochettino said that we needed a rebuild, never happened, and we're still in that stage where we need that rebuild, and it's not happening with the guy in charge.
I can see why you'd want him. I again, not trying to take the mick, but I can't quite see why he'd come back at the moment. But maybe you know more than I do there.
Well, I've got no evidence to say. It's just feeling that with everything that's going on. But he always said, didn't he, he'll be back because he's got unfinished business. But I'm not sure he should be back in about 3 years. But I mean, well, it's been I would say it's been a pleasure, but I had to relive the game yesterday, so it hasn't been a complete one. But I appreciate the gloating kept to a minimum. And
thank you. Well, and just for the record, I agreed to come on before the game, right? So it's gone very differently. And in the other leg, in the away leg for us, if you want to,
definitely.
If you guys do it, then I'll come on, and hopefully you'll be as kind to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's next year, isn't it? It must be like February, I think. It's fairly late on in the season. But I mean, Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Before you go, you got obviously your Twitter handle there, Giles Went West. You got a video game blog. Is that right?
Yeah,
For
just
people
to plug,
who weren't at the start.
Yeah, so just to plug, I do some writing, or have done some writing for Jump Cut Play, games website. But more recently, I have a podcast, Old Guy Gamer, which I'm on a bit of a summer break. I'm pushing it now at the end of September. I need to decide what to do with that one. But yeah, if you follow me on Twitter at Giles Went West, or if you fancy a game, I'm on Xbox or PlayStation Network at Giles Went West as well.
Excellent. I'll put all of that in the description on YouTube and Spotify, Apple, and all of that. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Giles. Always a pleasure. And back on whenever we're playing you next.
Sounds good. Good luck, mate.
Yeah, cheers. We've got Villa next. Please, for the love of God, Tottenham, give me a podcast where I can talk about a win and have a happy podcast. Certainly before an international break. And then don't let us have another battering, another 3 goals conceded and a loss, and then 2 weeks off. So, yeah, come on, give us a win, show some effort, change something, make us better defensively like you were at the start of the season, Nuno, get us some goals, and get us a way of playing that is attractive again and that we can hurt teams. Yeah, I'll be back on Friday, looking forward to the Villa game. Well, I won't be looking forward to the Villa game, but the podcast will be. But until then, come on, you Spurs.
Thank you so much for watching, for everybody who participated in the live chat and added comments. Before you go, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Anybody who couldn't watch the live video, you can still catch us on YouTube. Add any comments, suggestions or questions to the comments section on the video. Anybody who's listened to the audio-only podcast, thank you so much for listening. Anybody who wants the audio-only podcast, you get this wherever you get your podcast from. Alternatively, if you go to Twitter at Talk Tottenham, you'll find all the information there. We'll be back soon. We're live Mondays, 8 p.m, Fridays, 12:30 UK time. Until then, come on, you Spurs!